Story 1. It was not years, but months after we broke up. She sent a series of text messages apologizing for how things ended, expressing how much I had been on her mind lately, and wanting things to be good between us. We talked on the phone about an hour later. It was a good conversation. We have not spoken since, but it was good to have things cordial between us with no bad feelings. Story 2. Yes, probably 3 years after talking last. She said she was really sorry for how she had treated me, that I was a good person and she was a troubled person with many issues. She explained some of those issues but said they were not an excuse. She wanted to meet up in person but would understand if I did not want to. We met in person a week or two later and had a pleasant, uneventful lunch. Over the next several months, she gradually came back into my life, told me she loved me, and asked to start hooking up again. I reminded her she had a boyfriend, and she said she was not ready to break up with him. I told her I was not interested in being involved in cheating. Then she began spreading false rumors about me and made my life difficult, much like she had years earlier. It was a case of the scorpion and the frog. Eventually, she cheated on her boyfriend with a much older married man whose wife she worked with. This became known, and she quickly moved away in shame. Story 3. Once, there was a girl from high school, but we were not exes for anything particularly bad. It just was not a great mix, and she had many family problems. We video chatted for about 20 to 30 minutes, approximately 10 years later. She was living with her boyfriend and child across the province. She seemed sad. I think she wanted to potentially reconcile and maybe meet up, but I told her I had moved on. Story 4. Yes. Twice. The first time we were very young, and she treated me like a plaything. About 15 years later, she found me online and reached out to apologize. She said that looking back, she felt deep shame about being the villain in someone's story. She said she was young, stupid, and sorry for what she did. It honestly stunned me and helped a lot with moving forward and releasing that trauma, which I was coincidentally addressing with a therapist. I forgave her. We are still good friends to this day, and I have enormous respect for her now. She was young and not thinking about consequences when she hurt me. She also had the courage to right that wrong. The second was an ex who struggled with alcohol. When we broke up, her life fell apart due to drinking. She reached out to apologize for everything she had done and hinted at getting back together. I told her I appreciated that and hoped she got help for her addiction. I advised her to attend an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, as she had previously quit drinking through the program. That was the last time we spoke. Story 5. Growth happens. I am on good terms with 2 ex-partners. The first was messy and involved children. It took us both nearly a decade to realize we were not enemies. We stayed civil for the children but were not on good terms. In recent years, we have both made apologies and had some friendly conversations. We are different people than we were 15 years ago, having grown and matured, and I now consider us friends. The second ended on good terms, and she apologized despite none being necessary. Her goals and needs had changed, and she felt that she was holding me back from being happy. I disagreed at the time, but 5 years later, I know she was more aware of my needs than I was, due to depression and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Will either of those relationships ever rekindle? Highly unlikely. What they want in a relationship and what I want or can offer are very different things. That does not mean we cannot be friends, spend time together, or help each other from time to time. Maturity and forgiveness can be powerful in all areas of life. Story 6. I had a fiancée cheat on me about 10 years ago. She reached out about 4 years ago and we talked briefly. I held on to my hatred of her for so long that I forgave her more for my benefit than hers. I don't know why she reached out, but I am glad I was able to put it behind me. We never talked again. Story 7. My ex reached out to me 2 to 3 months after we broke up. She said she was sorry because her longtime friends had died, and she finally understood what it was like to lose someone close. The reason we broke up was that I wasn't acting like myself after my mother passed. I guess people have to learn about themselves. I was honestly fine at that point, but we have moved on. Story 8. I had an ex break up with me after we had been dating for about 3 years and getting serious. I thought we were going to get married. She cheated on me with a married man from work and just went no contact. I came home from work one day and all her things were gone. No texts, nothing. She blocked me. After about 3 months, she realized the man she was cheating with was never going to leave his family for her and he basically dumped her. She showed up at my front door. She looked distressed and had been crying. I rejected her attempt to hug me when I answered the door and told her I was no longer an option for her, then closed the door. About 2 years later, she contacted me and apologized, expressing deep regret for her actions and what she did to me. She said I was the best thing that ever happened in her life, and she mourns the life she missed out on, the children we never had, and the family she will never have. I had moved on by this point, but honestly, it brought back a lot of memories, good and bad, and made me feel terrible for a while. I'm not sure I needed to hear it. Story 9. 9 times out of 10, it is for them to release some of the guilt they have felt over the years. It is almost always self-serving, even if it is positive. When this has happened, I have said something along the lines of, I am happy you are making some positive changes and appreciate the gesture, but I am in a good place and do not think we should revisit what has happened in the past. They almost never respond anyway because they got that burden off their back. Story 10. A couple of months after the divorce was finalized, she messaged me saying she was sorry and that I was who she needed at that time, and that she had loved me when we were together. My personal rule during the separation was to not engage in anything aside from logistical conversations, such as, I have something of yours from when I moved out. I will bring it to your home. So I remained silent. It also felt wrong that I was who she needed in that moment. It made me feel even more used. A couple of hours later, she texted again saying, I need you to say something. I still remained silent. Months passed, and I received a very long message in the middle of the night. I did not read it. The message preview said, well, being nice isn't working, so I am going to be mean. I mean honest. I still have no idea what it said. Every few months, she annoys me with more messages. I am finally changing my number. Every number I block, she just uses a new hidden number to annoy me. So this is long overdue. Story 11. Years after my divorce, my former wife reached out with an apology. I told her I accepted it gladly, but I do not know if I will ever forgive her fully. Cleared the air, and it was much easier to talk to her afterward whenever I needed to. Story 12. She took ownership of many things she did. Felt genuine and I appreciated it. At the same time, it did not take away the years of pain I endured due to her decisions. I think many people struggle with thinking about long-term consequences and do not understand that you cannot take back the things you did or said. Story 13. She called me years later. I was in my 20s, about to get married. I had dated this girl when I was 16. It was pretty much the elevator scene in Mad Men. Oh, I don't think about you at all. Anything else? Story 14. Reached out? Yes, and told me how good she was doing now with her new family, saying I was toxic. So that was a great time. Pretty weird. Just leave me alone. We grew apart. We were teenagers. Story 15. Yes. It went well. She was heartfelt. She told me that because of her difficult circumstances, she essentially took a better deal. I appreciated her honesty. Also, I cannot really argue with her because she is living a great life. That was the one apology I have received, and I hold her in high regard because of it. Accountability and closure are very meaningful to me, as they are so rare. Story 16, kind of. I found out my ex cheated on me with a friend, so I divorced her and stopped all contact. I didn't even tell her I knew. I saw her in court, but had a sheriff and my lawyer keep her away from me. Almost 4 years later, I flew down to see her dad because we got close, and she doesn't live with them. I guess her mom decided to tell her I would be there, and she caught me leaving her parents' place, headed to my hotel. She was upset and crying, so we got in the car, and she told me she hadn't dated since and she really wanted to fix our relationship. Not going to lie, it took everything I had not to physically throw her out of the car. I told her if she ever did that again, I would get a restraining order. I also told her dad that what his wife did would not happen again. Now he will fly to see me, or we'll meet in Las Vegas for a weekend. Story 17. I was the ex. I reached out and gave a genuine point-by-point breakdown of how bad I was to her. I apologized but did not ask for forgiveness. She gave it anyway. I still reach out once a year or so and ask how she is doing, merely as an old friend. All in all, I would say it went rather well. Story 18. It was a fake apology. She claimed she wanted my cat. I think things did not work out with her new boyfriend, and she was hoping to get back together with me but switched to the cat excuse when I made it clear there was nothing between us. Story 19. I had one week where, on Sunday, I crashed my bike in a road race. The bike was destroyed. My body was bruised all over, especially my knee. Then, on Tuesday, I was fired from my job. On Friday, my girlfriend of 3 years announced that she had cheated on me and left me that same day. Those are the moments in life when you wonder if you would ever take your own life. A year later, my ex came back, apologized, and wanted to get back together. I agreed, but this time she became abusive both physically and emotionally. She became addicted to psychedelic drugs, which I understand is extremely rare. She quit her well-paying job and lost her house while traveling all over South America. She ended up pregnant by a random man from Ecuador and returned as a single mother. Even though I am happily married now, I will carry my resentment toward her for the rest of my life. She can go away forever. Do not take an ex back, ever. Story 20. My mind bothers me with this one. God forbid if they were not able to cut their exes and former friends with benefits out of their lives when I was dating them. But somehow they magically gained that ability when it came to me. It makes me feel like a speck of dust. I am not here waiting for an apology or anything, but even a strong negative response would suffice in a way. Story 21. We broke up because she had been talking to another man in another state and wanted to be with him. He was coming to see her, and that's when I found out about him. I was basically told to get lost. The joke was on her because he found someone back home and came to break it off with her in person. Days later, she tried to come back to me, apologized for what happened, and wanted me back. My ability to trust her was gone, and who wants to know they were the second choice? I kindly told her to lose my number. Story 22. They did, but it was not an apology. It was an "I am sorry that you felt that way" dressed as an apology. It did nothing but make my blood boil and make me even more upset. Story 23. If she did, I would be suspicious about her intent. One thing I learned about her is she does not do anything nice for me without having an ulterior motive. Another thing people need to be aware of is that 12-step programs often have people apologize to those they have wronged in the past. Story 24. Nearly 2 years after breaking up, after she tried to take everything from me, including my house, she reached out and apologized. She said she never realized how badly she treated me at times until she recently read old messages. The absolute kicker was when she admitted to regularly cheating while she was away for work and that her constant accusations of me cheating were her way of feeling less guilty. She told me she had been and was still attending extensive therapy sessions, trying to fix her life, and thought I deserved to know the truth. Story 25. Not sure if she wanted to apologize. She didn't have anything to apologize for. But I did have an ex quite recently try to find me. She was not from the country I'm from, and we dated for a year while she was here on a visa. After she left, a few years later I moved out of the country, where I have now lived for 23 years. 2 years ago, my wife and son received strange calls on their cell phones from Australia, where she is from. They didn't answer and I didn't connect the dots. Then, a year later, I kept getting missed calls from a private investigator, which I did not answer. One day, I got a knock on my front door. There was a man standing there. I opened the door, and he introduced himself as a private investigator who had apparently been following me. He said he nearly approached me while I was at Home Depot. He then asked if I remembered the ex-girlfriend. When I confirmed I knew her, he said she had been trying to find me. I asked why, but he said he did not know, just that she hired him to find me. We had a little chat and he asked what he should tell her. I told him that unless she had something very important to share, like if I had a 23-year-old child I didn't know about, I was not interested in talking to her. That was the last I heard from him or her. My wife was not happy. Story 26. I once got an email from an ex that said something along the lines of, "Dear name, I was chatting with my previous partner about a very personal issue related to our intimate life, and she assured me that if I had just talked to you, you would have understood. I was wondering if you might want to try again. And I am thinking, you talked to my other ex about that?" Story 27. I have considered reaching out over the years. It was a difficult relationship, although I believe it involved genuine care and affection in both directions. When I was ending that relationship, I could only focus on how my attempts to help them with their struggles were not leading anywhere meaningful, and how their actions in response to their own challenges were not healthy for me. I really struggled to balance being there for them in healthy and meaningful ways while preserving my own well-being. Things deteriorated in a way I am sure neither of us wanted. I learned a lot from that time and since, and I wish I had more experience and maturity. I wish I had been a better friend and not worried so much about the partnership. I have had a lot of success with this since then, and I understand that people learn well from failure. I am comfortable with that dynamic, but there have only been a few times in my life where that failure also significantly affects another person's life. I have debated reaching out but have not been able to convince myself that it is the right thing for me to do. It does not feel like I would be reaching out to apologize and relieve myself of guilt. I like to tell myself it would be because it is the right thing to do, to take accountability and apologize for what I would do differently now, but I am not convinced that is worth the disruption to them. Perhaps the past is the past in this case. It is hard to say. Story 28. My ex was a complete narcissist and self-absorbed. It has been 3 years since we broke up, and she tells me she still regrets the breakup and wants me back. Sorry, I do not read my book backwards. Never take people for granted. Story 29. She apologized for treating me so badly and said that I did not deserve that after how nice I was to her. She then made excuses along the lines of finding herself or going through things. As far as I can tell, she wanted forgiveness and had heard I was going to be making money, and she wanted to mooch. I was polite and tried to be nice, but that hurt had been so deep and so long ago that it is not something I can change anymore. You cannot do much about scar tissue that old. As another person pointed out, people who do this are not actually caring about what they did to you. It is just them being self-serving and wanting the guilt to go away without doing anything or improving. Story 30. Yes, my former fiancée did. We reconciled and remained friends until she moved to a different state. We are still friends but have less contact. Story 31. How did it go? The apology? How apologies usually go. There is no reason to reject such an apology. Also, there is no reason to stay in contact. Story 32. Sure. A year after we broke up and I was dating someone else whom I later married, she said she was sorry and regretted losing me. I said that was sweet, but at least I was in a much better relationship now, so she should move on. She did, but still held a flame for decades. Story 33. Same ex. Multiple attempts to reach out. She had to apologize for lying to me the whole time we were together. I had assumed I was the other man for a while throughout the relationship, but her finally admitting it and putting it all out on paper made me feel vindicated. Too bad it didn't help me move past any of the damage she has done to me. Where you are, I hope it burns when you pee. Story 34. Black and white. Sorry I broke things, but I hooked up with an attractive man. Cheers. Sorry I broke things with you, but I was depressed and did not want to affect your life. You are a lovely person. Story 35. I divorced my wife, and she sent a long text saying she loved me and our marriage. She was sorry and will always love me. I was a terrible person, but after 6 years, I was tired of upsetting her. Story 36. About 10 years later, I just left it on read. Found out later she had broken up with her boyfriend. To be fair, it was late at night, probably after a few shandies, so understandable. I thought maybe she could convince herself I had changed my number or had not seen it, which is how I acted. Story 37. No, never. I had one person contact me through an intermediary to see if I wanted to reestablish contact with her. I did not. Story 38. Kind of. It didn't start as an apology. It was an accidental bumping into each other. We chatted for a bit to catch up on where we had been in the last 22 years, then ended with, "Hey, I'm really sorry for how I handled things. To be honest, when I realized who I had just seen, I looked back, and we caught each other's eyes. I almost fled the scene. It was not a good period of my life, and I really didn't want to revisit it. But 22 years is a lot of water under the bridge, and we are both in better places now. I guess good on her for owning up to it." Story 39. No, never. Eventually, I realized you do not need to confront someone who hurt you to gain closure and move on. Story 40. Yes, he followed me on Instagram. He used to have me blocked and apologized if he ever did anything that was not cool or something along those lines. I just read it, did not respond, and blocked him. Story 41. She reached out but didn't apologize. We were high school sweethearts. I had graduated before her and went off to college, believing we could make the long-distance relationship work. She didn't. She split our friend group apart in the process. Since I wasn't in our hometown with everyone else, I kept living my life. Eventually, I met the kind soul who would be my wife. I never moved back home and made a new life with our own, more adult friends. My friend group back home was kind of rough. My wife knows that if I don't introduce her to someone back home, there's probably a good reason. We were at a Bob Marley festival about 18 years ago, a blanket on the grassy hill enjoying the music when my ex suddenly appeared standing next to me. She said hi like nothing had ever happened, like she didn't tear my heart out and use it to split our friend group apart. Just a very casual, "Hey Z, how have you been?" Looking between me and my wife, I guess hoping for an introduction. My wife remained silent, still enjoying the music, pretending my ex wasn't there. I was brief and gave her one-word answers. She quickly gave up as she got the hint that she and I were done. As she walked away, my wife asked, "Who was that?" "Gee, oh, the one that ripped your heart out?" "Yup." Again, one-word answers from me. She jokingly asked, "Do you still love her? Still have feelings for her?" Took me a little while to gather my thoughts. I was in love with 17-year-old G in high school. I'm 25 now, she's a stranger to me now, and you are a million times better for me than she ever was. I like myself and who I am becoming as I get older with you. My wife didn't say anything, just held my hand while still sitting on the grassy hill enjoying the music. 12 years later, I received a phone call from one of the few friends back home who still had my number. "G is dead, man. Her father was an alcoholic and apparently she inherited the genes. She drank herself to death at 37. Story 42. Came back 6 months after blocking me. Apologized profusely, and we spoke for over an hour during a video call. I would be lying if I said I wasn't waiting for her to reach out. A week later, we were planning our wedding for next year. Stupid, I know, but she was the only girl I ever wanted. 2 months later, she informed her mother about me. Her mother disapproved, and guess what she did? She called it off. Good times. Story 43. Here is some real advice for you. She is never going to apologize. Stop expecting it. Every person who has been dumped imagines that the other will come back and ask for forgiveness, saying, "I am so sorry I ended things. I made a mistake. I am a terrible person. You are better than me. Let's get back together." It is never going to happen, especially not like that. Does it happen? Only in movies. If your ex apologizes to you, that is an even bigger warning sign because she is trying to reestablish contact. Remember, she ended it because she did not see a future with you. She saw you as beneath her. She chose someone else over you. She is your ex for a reason. Story 44. He showed his face at a fundraiser I organized in memory of my daughter. I assume it was some kind of apology, but that is as far as it goes. Story 45. Yes. He reached out by email a year and a half after we broke up, sending me a note saying the breakup was his burden to bear, and that the what-ifs crossed his mind. I found it awkward because I knew he was in a relationship at the time. He ended up marrying, but I am not sure if they are still together. I had already moved on to a healthy new relationship, am now happily married, in graduate school, and living my life. Story 46. It was part of her 12-step program. All in all, it went well enough. She is still clean to my knowledge, married, and has children. Story 47. Ran into one about a decade after we had broken up. She apologized for being overly dramatic while we were together. Story 48. I attended a housewarming party in my hometown for my old friends. Unknowingly, my ex had married one of their friends and was there. This woman had previously accused me of abusing her when she held me against my will in her basement. I had to physically move her to escape. I changed jobs because we worked together, and all our coworkers sided with her. I lost some friends as well. Eventually, I moved to a new city and moved on. As soon as she saw me, she started apologizing. She said it was due to bad medications at the time and post-traumatic stress disorder from prior abusive relationships. She seemed sincere and had a new husband and children, so it was no longer my problem. I never heard from any of them again, except for a thank you for the housewarming gift. Story 49. I was his first partner, only dated a couple of months before he broke things off, and I was happy to let him. He reached out about a year later. I owe you thanks and an apology. Because of you, I finally got on antidepressants and have been getting help I didn't know I needed until you pointed it out. Now that I'm seeing things more clearly, I also know you deserve an apology too. I responded that I was happy to hear life was going better for him and wished him well. By chance, I ran into him about 5 years later. We had lunch, caught up, were intimate, and then went our separate ways. Story 50. We were about 20 and dated for a short time. Without going into too much detail, it didn't work out because this woman either had the worst luck during the time we were together or she was playing games. Almost 10 years later, she reached out to me and apologized for how she behaved. As one might guess, she did not actually admit to playing games, instead offering a list of reasons and things going on in her life that caused her to make bad decisions. Nevertheless, I saw no harm in accepting her apology and wished her well. From there, things got strange. After I accepted her apology, she apologized again, more profusely. She said she felt as strongly about me as anyone she had ever dated and wanted to know if there was a possibility of us rekindling our romance. She assured me she was in a better place in life and things would be very different now. The problem was, we never had a romance between us. I was genuinely baffled by her statement. We met the week of Thanksgiving and were done by the second week of January. During that time, we talked on the phone a handful of times, but never had any profound or life-impacting conversations. We went out 3 or 4 times at most. For anyone wondering, we were never even close to intimate. Somewhat passionate kissing was the extent of physical relations. We talked socially for less than 2 months, and there was nothing significant about it. To give you an idea, the call she made 10 years later went something like this. Phone ring, ring, ring. Me, hello. Her. Hi Gunnar, it's Sally. Me. Sally, yes. How can I help you? Her. It's Sally Jones. We dated a while back when I was a student at XYZ University. Me. Sally Jones? I never attended XYZ University. I'm afraid you have the wrong Gunnar. Her. No, I know you didn't. I did. My friend Joan Smith was dating your friend John Anderson. We met at Cheap Dive Bar about 10 years ago. Me. Her. Me. Oh, Sally, yes, of course, Sally Jones. How are you? How have you been? In other words, it took me more than a moment to figure out who it even was, and I was clueless as to why she was calling me. To put it in further perspective, either the summer before or after knowing her, I honestly do not remember which, I went without a car for a week and a half as mine was getting some electrical work done. During that time, I took the bus to work. While doing so, I met Mrs. Johnson, an elderly lady who took the same bus a couple of times. I remember more about Mrs. Johnson, whom I met at a bus stop twice, than I do or did about Sally Jones. There was nothing special between Sally and me, barely anything memorable. The only notable thing about her reaching out a decade later was the earnestness of her apology and the almost desperate insistence that we give us another chance. And that was a serious red flag. Story 51. She made attempts at rebuilding or maintaining something like a friendship in shared spaces with mutual friends, but I was not there yet. I am still not sure she was coming from a genuine place either, but I demurred, so it is kind of irrelevant at this point. Many years later, we were able to spend a small amount of time together as part of a group at a festival and even shared a hug, but that was the last contact we had. Story 52. I have. He apologized for realizing that after being broken up with by several people before me for similar reasons, he was the one at fault. We are civil, but that unexpected surprise was nice to hear. Story 53. It was a huge weight off my shoulders, honestly. She was abused and had issues with our father. Years later, she entered therapy and reached out to me to apologize. We talked through some things and are now on somewhat casual speaking terms. She had a huge heart and took care of her younger brothers, but her upbringing left her with crippling self-esteem issues and a drinking problem. Story 54. No, almost all of the girls I dated in the past, once it ends, we never speak or see each other again. Look up last meeting theory, which basically says the universe will make sure you and your ex will never hear about each other again. I think it is true. I do not know anything about their lives or vice versa. But yeah, no one has ever reached out to me. It does not help that I always block. Story 55. Yes. 3 years after I moved out and 2 years after the divorce was final, she cheated. I left. She apologized. And I told her I forgive her but would never trust her again. She was not happy about it, but her happiness was no longer my responsibility. Story 56. Woman here. Yes. 13 years later, I received an email apology for his abuse. It honestly read like step 9 of a 12-step program. I did not respond. This was last year. Story 57. One did, my ex-fiancée. She wanted to chat about life after reconnecting on LinkedIn. Against much better judgment and advice from my friends, who were fantastic and told me not to do it, I did it. She immediately stirred up old issues. We hadn't spoken in 4.5 years. She wanted to apologize for ghosting me and not giving me a chance to 1. Tell my side of the story and 2. Give her own perspective on things. I was upset but gave her a chance, and it was mostly pleasant. Then I learned why she reached out. She broke up with her long-term relationship boyfriend of 2 to 3 years. I realized she was looking for validation, and sure enough, she was in a new relationship within a few days. She's the kind of person addicted to relationships. I can't think of a time when I knew her that she was ever single for more than a few weeks. We were together for a year. She was dating a guy for a year before that, and another guy a few months prior. I was young and inexperienced, and she was the first woman I was ever in love with. We were also in a foreign development program living and working in a developing country together for a long-term period. Looking back, I think I was just the closest reasonably attractive guy she could manipulate. I, having been relatively inexperienced in love and relationships, mistook sex and affection for love. She did agree to be my wife when I asked her. That she said yes, then casually dismissed me later was something I thought I'd never forgive. But oddly, it was the learning that she had broken up with another guy and had been the dumpee as it sounded like he moved elsewhere, that she figured validation would be the key for herself. So she dredged me up when I should have stayed in the past. Story 58. My last ex messaged me 6 months into my relationship with my wife. She was apologizing, trying to be sweet, and attempting to leverage good memories. She knew all of my soft spots. In the end, I told her to leave me alone. She did not get what she wanted, so she turned into a difficult person. It verified to me that I made the right choice. Story 59. I got the opposite. I received a text 6 months later from an ex asking to meet and for me to stay quiet so she could tell me everything I did wrong. I had been in therapy for a while and was in a new relationship, so I agreed after speaking to my partner, which caused some tension. I figured it would provide closure and let me see if she had learned to accept any accountability. Spoiler, she didn't. She set a time 3 weeks in advance, then canceled completely a week later. I think she did it just to see if she could still access my life. My therapist was convinced she was a narcissist before this happened, and this was the final straw. Story 60. It was about a year after I broke up with her. She apologized for her bad behavior and said she also did not know why she did that. I said, "Thanks. I do not know either." We stayed vaguely in touch. That is it. Story 61. My ex, About half a year after leaving me for someone else, we were married. Sent divorce papers along with a letter that rambled on without any apologies. She said she didn't mean to end it the way she did and that it didn't matter now anyway because it was over. It was a lot of self-serving nonsense she only sent because I refused to talk to her directly. She apparently gave my sister, who was my go-between, a lot of attitude because I wouldn't text her. She then forced me to text her when I got angry about her not closing the joint account, and also forced me to file for divorce, making me pay despite her promising she would. Story 62. Nearly 7 years after we broke up, she reached out to thank me for my generosity and to tell me how grateful and proud she was to have received my love. This was over email. I told her to leave me alone and stay away. She promptly agreed. The email I sent was sharp, no profanity, yet it stung. Story 63. Yes. Also, my high school crush who declined my invitation to prom reached out to tell me she should have said yes. My boss at my first full-time job, who fired me after I asked for a raise, reached out to say it was his biggest professional mistake and offered me a promotion with a 20% increase above the raise I had requested. Another previous boss, who was very attractive and married with children, reached out to say she would have given it all up for a night with me. Oh, and my gym crush approached me right after I finished a set of 50 consecutive pull-ups and told me she had always had eyes for me. And then I woke up. Story 64. He better not be. Why would he? I don't need an apology after some time, if that was the case that they did me wrong. I just want to move on and not give them any more time. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.